The Deep Space Monitoring Station drifted silently through the void, its sensors sweeping across the galaxy for signs of primitive civilizations. For 300 years, the Galactic Council had used these automated platforms to catalog worlds that might be ready for contact or conquest. Today, the station's artificial intelligence flagged another unremarkable system for review. Admiral Thane of the Korthic Empire received the report while reviewing invasion plans in his private quarters, aboard the massive warship Dominator. The file contained standard information about a small blue world orbiting a yellow star. The planet showed electromagnetic signatures typical of a young species that had recently discovered radio technology. Their broadcasts leaked into space, like a beacon, advertising their presence to anyone with the proper equipment. The humans of Earth had no idea they were being watched. Thane scrolled through the intelligence data with practiced efficiency. The species appeared to have reached the nuclear age within the last century and had achieved basic spaceflight using primitive chemical rockets. Their largest structures in orbit were simple space stations that required constant resupply from their homeworld. Everything suggested a civilization following the standard development pattern that the Empire had observed on dozens of other worlds. The planet's population was estimated at 8 billion individuals based on energy consumption and urban heat. Signatures. Their military technology remained confined to projectile weapons, chemical explosives, and crude nuclear devices. Satellite imagery showed armies equipped with wheeled vehicles and aircraft that still relied on burning fossil fuels for propulsion. Even their most advanced fighters were subsonic craft that would pose no threat to Imperial vessels. What made Earth particularly attractive was its location at the intersection of several major hyperspace lanes. Control of the system would provide the Empire with a strategic staging area for further expansion into unexplored regions of the galaxy. The humans themselves were merely an obstacle to be removed or enslaved depending on their usefulness as laborers. Thane had commanded invasion fleets for over 2 decades and had never encountered significant resistance from primitive worlds. The pattern was always the same. First came the show of force, then desperate attempts at negotiation, followed by quick surrender once the natives realized the futility of resistance. Most species could be pacified within a standard galactic week. The Admiral called up holographic displays showing Earth's solar system in detail. The outer planets contained small research stations and automated mining equipment, nothing that would require serious military attention. A few artificial satellites orbited the inner worlds, but they appeared to be simple communication relays and weather monitoring platforms. The humans had not even achieved fusion power generation. Still relying on fission reactors and primitive renewable energy systems, Fleet Commander Corvin entered the briefing room as Thane finished his preliminary assessment. The younger officer had earned his rank through successful campaigns against 3 different species and showed promise for future advancement within the Imperial hierarchy. His specialty was rapid subjugation of primitive worlds using minimal resources and casualties. The humans show no signs of advanced defensive capabilities, Corvin reported after reviewing the intelligence files. Their space presence is limited to scientific observation and basic resource extraction. We estimate complete conquest within 10 standard days using a moderate force deployment. Thane nodded approvingly. The operation would serve as excellent training for newer crew members while providing the Empire with valuable real estate. He approved a fleet composition of 200 vessels ranging from heavy cruisers to troop transports. The force would be sufficient to overwhelm any resistance while demonstrating Imperial might to other species monitoring the region. Preparation for the invasion began immediately. Supply ships loaded provisions for a short campaign while intelligence officers compiled detailed maps of major human population centers. The plan called for simultaneous strikes on military installations followed by occupation of key cities and industrial centers. Most Imperial citizens would never even learn about the conquest until Earth appeared on updated star charts as another Imperial possession. The invasion fleet assembled at a staging area 3 jumps from the Sol system. Crew members made final preparations while officers reviewed tactical plans for orbital bombardment and ground assault. Everyone expected the operation to proceed smoothly based on previous experience with primitive civilizations. The humans would likely attempt some form of resistance, but their weapons were too crude to threaten Imperial technology. The fleet prepared to enter hyperspace. Admiral Thane recorded a message for the Imperial archives. Fleet deployment. Successful. Target species shows standard primitive development patterns. Anticipating routine conquest with minimal complications. Will report successful completion within 2 weeks. The massive warships vanished into hyperspace, leaving empty space where moments before a formidable military force had gathered. Their destination was a small blue world whose inhabitants had no idea that their quiet existence was about to end. The signals that Earth continued broadcasting into space would soon bring visitors that humanity was completely unprepared to face. Behind them, automated monitoring stations continued their patient vigil, scanning for other worlds that might require the Empire's attention. The conquest of Earth would simply be another entry in the vast database of Imperial expansion, forgotten as soon as the next target was identified. What none of the aliens suspected was that the primitive signals they had been intercepting for centuries were not accidental leakage from an advancing civilization. They were carefully crafted transmissions designed to create exactly the impression that the Empire had formed about human capabilities. Earth had been deliberately appearing weak while building strength in absolute secrecy. The trap had been set generations ago, and the aliens were walking directly into it. The alarm started screaming throughout the hidden command center buried 3 kilometers beneath the Australian outback. Major Brooks had been expecting this moment for 15 years, but still felt his heart racing as he watched the massive energy signatures appear on the edge of the solar system. The aliens had finally arrived. 200 hostile vessels dropped out of hyperspace near Pluto's orbit, exactly where Earth's deep space sensors had predicted they would emerge. The alien fleet arrangement followed standard invasion protocols that human intelligence had been studying for decades through captured transmissions and careful observation of other species conflicts across the galaxy. Brooks activated the global alert system that would notify every hidden installation throughout the solar system. From lunar bases disguised as research stations to asteroid mining operations that concealed massive weapons platforms, humanity's true military infrastructure began its carefully rehearsed response. The masquerade that had protected Earth for generations was about to be tested. Fleet Commander Corvin reviewed his tactical displays with satisfaction as his vessels moved toward the inner system. Long-range scanners detected exactly what Imperial intelligence had predicted they would find. A few primitive space stations orbited Earth, while scattered installations throughout the system appeared to be simple scientific outposts and resource extraction operations. The human response to their arrival was perfectly predictable. Radio transmissions from Earth increased dramatically as news of the alien fleet spread among their population. Emergency broadcasts filled the communication spectrum while their primitive military forces attempted to coordinate some form of response. Everything suggested a species in panic at the sudden appearance of superior technology. Ambassador Walsh received her instructions while sitting in the heavily shielded chamber beneath the United Nations building in New York. The message she was about to transmit had been written 50 years earlier by specialists who understood exactly how to manipulate alien expectations. Every word had been chosen to reinforce the impression that humanity was desperate and completely outmatched. The surrender demands came exactly on schedule, broadcast across all frequencies in the universal trade language that Earth had secretly mastered decades ago. Fleet Commander Corvin's message was polite but firm, offering humanity the choice between peaceful submission or complete destruction. The aliens gave Earth's government 72 hours to respond with unconditional surrender. Walsh's reply was transmitted 12 hours later, carefully timed to suggest extensive debate among world leaders who were struggling to understand their situation. Her message expressed shock at first contact with alien life while pleading for negotiations that might find some peaceful resolution. She emphasized humanity's desire for dialogue and cooperation, painting Earth as a species eager to learn from their galactic neighbors Corvin received the human response while dining in his private quarters aboard the flagship Destiny. The message was exactly what he had expected from a primitive species faced with overwhelming force. The humans were frightened but hopeful, clearly believing that their diplomatic overtures might actually influence imperial policy. Their naivety was almost touching throughout the solar system. Hidden installations continued their preparations while maintaining the illusion of helplessness. The lunar bases that appeared to be scientific research stations were actually fortress complexes, with weapons that could shatter continents. Asteroid mining operations concealed manufacturing facilities that had been producing advanced warships in absolute secrecy for over a century. Captain Reed monitored the alien fleet's movement from his concealed position within the asteroid belt. His facility was officially listed as Mining Station Gamma 7, a routine operation extracting rare metals from the countless rocks that orbited between Mars and Jupiter. In reality, the installation was one of humanity's most advanced military command centers. Coordinating defensive preparations throughout the system, the aliens maintained standard formation as they approached, clearly confident that their superior numbers and technology would overwhelm any resistance that primitive humanity might offer. Their vessels moved with the casual arrogance of a species that had conquered dozens of worlds without encountering serious opposition. They had no reason to suspect that this time would be different. Reed watched the tactical displays showing alien ship positions while counting down the hours until humanity would reveal its true nature. Everything depended on maintaining the deception until the enemy fleet was completely committed to their attack. The aliens had to believe they were facing helpless prey right up to the moment when Earth's trap was finally sprung. Radio transmissions from Earth continued to paint a picture of a world in chaos as governments struggled to formulate responses to the alien ultimatum. News broadcasts spoke of desperate attempts to organize resistance, while military leaders publicly debated whether their primitive weapons could possibly threaten the advanced technology approaching their world. The performance was flawless. Behind the carefully orchestrated panic, humanity's real preparations proceeded smoothly according to plans that had been refined through countless simulations and war games. Every installation knew its role, every weapon system had been tested, and every communication channel was secured through quantum encryption that no alien species had yet learned to break. The countdown continued as Fleet Commander Corvin's vessels crossed Jupiter's orbit and began their final approach toward Earth. The aliens remained confident in their overwhelming superiority, completely unaware that they were flying into the most sophisticated military trap in galactic history. Humanity was about to demonstrate why appearing weak while building strength was the ultimate strategic advantage. The first sign that something was terribly wrong appeared on Fleet Commander Corvin's sensor displays as his vessels crossed Mars orbit. Energy readings throughout the inner system were spiking far beyond what primitive human technology should have been capable of producing. What had appeared to be simple communication satellites were suddenly generating power signatures that rivaled Imperial capital ships. Lieutenant Bell sat in the primary control center of Luna Base Alpha, her hands steady on the activation controls despite the magnitude of what she was about to unleash. The installation had masqueraded as a peaceful research station for over 60 years while secretly housing weapons that could crack planets in half. Now the time for pretense had finally ended. The lunar surface began to split along carefully designed fracture lines as massive sections of manufactured rock retracted on hidden mechanisms. Beneath the false crust lay weapon emplacements that had been waiting in silence for generations, their targeting systems already locked onto every vessel in the alien fleet. Each gun battery possessed enough firepower to level entire continents, and there were hundreds of them hidden across the moon's surface. Corvin watched in growing horror as his tactical displays registered impossible energy buildups throughout Earth's orbital space. The primitive space stations he had dismissed as scientific outposts were transforming into something that challenged everything Imperial intelligence believed about human capabilities. What had appeared to be crude metal cylinders were unfolding into armored fortress platforms bristling with weapons that operated on principles his own scientists barely understood. Captain Stone commanded the installation officially known as International Space Station 7, a facility that alien surveillance had catalogued as humanity's most advanced orbital research platform. The reality was somewhat different. As Stone activated the station's true systems, layers of disguise fell away to reveal a battle platform that could withstand direct hits from stellar bombardment weapons while delivering retaliatory strikes. With pinpoint accuracy across interplanetary distances, the transformation was happening throughout the solar system as humanity abandoned the careful deception it had maintained for centuries. Asteroid mining operations revealed themselves as heavily armed defensive platforms. Research stations dropped their peaceful exteriors to expose military installations that had been preparing for this exact scenario since before most of the alien crew members had been born. Admiral Thane received the emergency reports from his flagship positioned safely behind the main fleet. The energy readings were beyond anything in Imperial databases. Human technology was displaying capabilities that should have required millennia of development and conquest of dozens of advanced civilizations. The intelligence files had been completely wrong about Earth's actual military potential. The outer system installations were equally deceptive. What Imperial sensors had identified as primitive resource extraction operations were actually manufacturing complexes that had been mass-producing advanced warships in absolute secrecy. Facilities disguised as scientific research stations began launching vessels that incorporated design principles no known species had ever developed independently. Colonel Parks authorized the activation of Battle Station Titan, the massive installation hidden within Jupiter's upper atmosphere. For decades, it had appeared on alien scans as nothing more than an atmospheric research platform studying the giant planet's storms. The reality was a mobile fortress the size of a small moon, equipped with manufacturing facilities that could produce entire fleets while remaining completely hidden from external observation. The asteroid belt erupted with activity as hundreds of concealed installations powered up simultaneously. Mining platforms that had operated for generations suddenly revealed their true nature as weapons platforms and ship construction facilities. The combined energy output of the hidden network rivaled that of some star systems, creating sensor readings that made Imperial computers flag multiple system errors. Corvin's fleet found itself surrounded by hostile installations that had appeared from nowhere while maintaining perfect concealment. Human technology was demonstrating capabilities that contradicted fundamental assumptions about primitive species development. No civilization should have been able to achieve this level of advancement without leaving clear traces that Imperial monitoring systems would have detected. The deception ran deeper than anyone had imagined possible. Earth's entire technological profile had been carefully crafted to hide capabilities that surpassed most galactic powers. The primitive radio transmissions, the crude chemical rockets, the simple orbital installations had all been elaborate misdirection, designed to conceal a military infrastructure that had been building for centuries, research stations throughout. The system began launching escort vessels that moved with precision impossible for any known primitive technology. The ships demonstrated acceleration curves and maneuvering capabilities that indicated mastery of gravitational manipulation and inertial compensation systems. Their hull configurations suggested understanding of physics principles that Imperial science was still struggling to comprehend. Fleet positions that had seemed tactically sound moments earlier now appeared to be carefully prepared kill zones. The aliens had been manipulated into approaching Earth along specific vectors that placed them at maximum disadvantage while giving human forces overlapping fields of fire from multiple hidden installations. Every aspect of their invasion route had been anticipated and planned for. The scope of the deception was staggering. Humanity had not only hidden their true capabilities but had actually encouraged alien observation, while feeding them false information for generations. The electromagnetic leakage that had convinced Imperial intelligence of human primitiveness had been deliberately broadcast to create exactly the wrong impression about Earth's actual technological level. As more human vessels emerged from concealment throughout the system, it became clear that the species Imperial forces had come to conquer possessed military capabilities that made them peer competitors rather than primitive prey. The masquerade was falling away to reveal something far more dangerous than anyone had suspected was possible. Empty space throughout the solar system began to shimmer and distort as humanity's true fleet emerged from hiding places that should not have been able to conceal anything larger than small research vessels. Advanced stealth technology that had been perfected over decades of secret development finally deactivated, revealing the presence of thousands of warships that had been waiting in perfect silence for this exact moment. General Torres commanded the massive Dreadnought Endeavor from a bridge that incorporated design principles stolen from a dozen different alien species and improved through centuries of human engineering innovation. The vessel had been stationed less than 1,000 kilometers from the alien fleet for the past 6 hours, completely invisible to Imperial sensors through stealth systems that operated on principles their science had never encountered. The transformation of Earth's defenses continued as installations throughout the system revealed capabilities that contradicted everything the aliens thought they knew about primitive species development. Manufacturing platforms that had masqueraded as asteroid mining operations began launching newly constructed vessels at a rate that suggested production capabilities rivaling major galactic shipyards. Fleet Commander Corvin watched his tactical displays with growing desperation as more human ships appeared every few minutes. The vessels emerging from concealment displayed hull configurations unlike anything in Imperial databases. Their design suggested understanding of principles that should have taken millennia to develop through conquest and absorption of multiple advanced civilizations. The human fleet that assembled to face the invasion force numbered in the thousands rather than the dozens that Imperial intelligence had predicted Earth might be able to deploy. Ships ranging from sleek destroyers to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in the Korthek arsenal emerged from hiding places throughout the inner system. Each vessel bore the clean, purposeful lines of a species that had spent centuries refining military technology while pretending to struggle with basic SPACEFLIGHT. Captain Morris commanded the battlecruiser Defiant from a position concealed within Saturn's rings, where his ship had waited for over a year as part of the defensive preparation. The vessel incorporated technology that had been secretly developed through analysis of alien transmissions and careful study of galactic warfare, principles observed through hidden monitoring stations positioned throughout known space. The outer system revealed even more surprises as facilities the aliens had dismissed as primitive. Research stations transformed into military installations that could manufacture and deploy entire battle groups within hours. Production capabilities that had been developed in absolute secrecy began operating at full capacity, launching vessels that incorporated the most advanced technology humanity had ever created. Admiral Thane received damage assessments from his reconnaissance vessels as they attempted to probe the human defenses now revealing themselves throughout the system. Every report confirmed the impossible. The species they had come to conquer possessed military capabilities that made them peer competitors rather than primitive prey. Their technology incorporated principles that Imperial science was still struggling to understand. The scope of the deception became clear as intelligence analysts aboard the Imperial flagship reviewed the emerging tactical situation. Humanity had not simply hidden their true capabilities but had actively encouraged alien observation while feeding them false information for generations. The primitive signals that had convinced the Empire of human weakness had been carefully crafted to create exactly the wrong impression about Earth's actual military potential. Battle Station Titan emerged from Jupiter's upper atmosphere like a mechanical moon, its hull bristling with weapons that could shatter asteroids and defensive systems that could withstand direct stellar bombardment. The installation had been hidden for decades within the giant planet's storms. While secretly coordinating defensive preparations throughout the outer system, human vessels demonstrated coordination that could only come from centuries of preparation and training. Every ship moved with precision that indicated complete familiarity with galactic tactical doctrine, combined with innovations that no alien species had developed. Their formation suggested understanding of principles that imperial academies taught only to their most advanced strategic planners. The asteroid belt revealed itself as humanity's primary shipyard and defensive network rather than the simple mining operation it had pretended to be. Hundreds of installations that had operated for generations under false identities began launching. Vessels that incorporated design improvements on proven galactic military architecture. The combined industrial capacity was staggering. Fleet positions that had seemed tactically sound, when facing primitive opposition, now appeared to be elaborate traps designed to place the aliens at maximum disadvantage. The humans had manipulated Imperial approach vectors to create overlapping fields of fire from hidden installations, while limiting the aliens' ability to maneuver or retreat. General Torres opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. His message transmitted on frequencies that demonstrated humanity's complete mastery of galactic communication protocols. His voice carried the authority of a species that had spent generations preparing for this confrontation while maintaining perfect operational security. The message was delivered with diplomatic politeness that barely concealed underlying steel. Humanity was offering the aliens exactly one opportunity to withdraw from the system, before facing the full consequences of their mistaken assumptions about Earth's military capabilities. The tone suggested complete confidence in the outcome of any engagement that might follow. As the human fleet completed its deployment throughout the system, the true magnitude of Imperial miscalculation became apparent. The species they had dismissed as primitive possessed technology and tactical capabilities that made them formidable opponents rather than helpless victims. The invasion force found itself facing an enemy that had been preparing for this exact scenario for longer than most Imperial officers had been alive. The silence stretched across the solar system for exactly 37 seconds after General Torres delivered humanity's ultimatum to the alien fleet. Fleet Commander Corvin made the decision that would determine the fate of his entire invasion. Force when he chose pride over prudence and ordered his vessels to attack rather than retreat from what had clearly become an impossible tactical situation. Admiral Hayes watched the alien response from the command deck of the Dreadnought Prometheus, a vessel so massive that its construction had required the resources of 3 different star systems and the labor of an entire generation. The ship represented the pinnacle of human military engineering, incorporating technology that had been developed through centuries of secret research and careful analysis of galactic warfare principles. The battle began with a demonstration of weapons technology that operated on principles the aliens had never encountered in their conquest of 47 different worlds. Gravitational manipulators seized Imperial vessels and crushed their hulls like paper, while energy beams that drew power from controlled antimatter reactions carved through advanced armor, as if it were simple metal sheeting. Corvin's flagship Destiny lasted less than 3 minutes under the focused fire of human weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics as the Empire understood them. The vessel's shields, which had withstood the desperate attacks of dozens of primitive species, offered no protection against technology that manipulated fundamental forces rather than simply applying brute energy to achieve destructive effects. The coordination displayed by humanity's forces revealed tactical understanding that could only have come from generations of studying galactic military doctrine while developing countermeasures for every known weapon system and strategic approach. Every human vessel moved with precision that indicated complete familiarity with Imperial capabilities combined with innovations that made their own technology obsolete. Captain Lewis commanded a destroyer group that had been concealed within the outer asteroid belt for over 18 months as part of the defensive preparation. His vessels demonstrated acceleration capabilities that indicated mastery of inertial manipulation technology, allowing them to execute maneuvers that would have been impossible for any known species, without crushing their crews under overwhelming gravitational forces. The lunar weapons platforms that had revealed themselves earlier in the engagement began demonstrating their true capabilities as planet-cracking artillery systems locked onto Imperial vessels across interplanetary distances. Each shot was precisely calculated to disable rather than destroy. suggesting tactical doctrine that prioritized capture of enemy technology and personnel for intelligence purposes. Admiral Fane ordered his remaining vessels to attempt a fighting withdrawal toward the edge of the system, but discovered that human forces had anticipated this possibility and deployed interdiction fields that prevented hyperspace jumps within the solar system's gravitational influence. The trap had been designed to ensure that no alien vessel would escape to report what they had encountered. Battle Station Titan emerged from Jupiter's atmosphere accompanied by a fleet of newly manufactured vessels that incorporated design principles, refined through analysis of the engagement in progress. Human industrial capacity was demonstrating the ability to adapt and improve their technology in real time based on combat performance. Data gathered from active weapons testing against Imperial targets. The outer system defensive network activated, simultaneously creating overlapping fields of fire that turned the space between Mars and Jupiter into a killing zone, where no Imperial vessel could survive for more than a few seconds. The coordination required for such precise timing indicated communication systems that operated faster than anything in galactic databases. Corvin's final transmission came from the bridge of his crippled flagship as human boarding parties prepared to take control of the vessel. His message was a warning to the Empire about the true nature of the species they had attempted to conquer, though the communication systems that might have carried it beyond the solar system had already been systematically destroyed by human cyber warfare specialists. The engagement lasted exactly 17 minutes from the first shot to the surrender of the last functional Imperial vessel. Not a single alien ship escaped the system, while human casualties consisted of minor damage to 3 escort vessels and no personnel losses whatsoever. The technological and tactical superiority demonstrated was overwhelming. Captain Hayes opened a system-wide broadcast knowing that automated monitoring stations, maintained by every major galactic power, would relay his message throughout known space. The transmission was deliberately clear and unencrypted to ensure maximum distribution of humanity's warning to potential future aggressors. The message that followed was delivered with diplomatic courtesy that made its underlying threat unmistakable. Earth was announcing its presence as a major galactic power while making clear that any species approaching human territory with hostile intent would face consequences that made the destruction of the Korthic invasion fleet appear merciful by comparison. News of the engagement spread throughout the galaxy within days as automated relay stations carried reports of the impossible battle to every major civilization. The species that had appeared primitive and helpless had revealed military capabilities that exceeded most galactic powers while demonstrating tactical sophistication that suggested careful study of interstellar warfare principles. The prisoners taken from Imperial vessels provided intelligence about galactic politics and technology that would accelerate human expansion beyond their home system, while the captured ships offered examples of alien engineering that could be analyzed and improved upon using principles the Empire had never developed. Within months, human exploration vessels began appearing throughout the galaxy, their advanced stealth systems allowing them to observe other civilizations while remaining completely undetected. The species that had spent centuries appearing weak while building strength was finally ready to take its place among the stars as an equal rather than as prey.